Chapter 41. Okay. I understand. Adam, feeling dejected, found Mr. Dean's number and gave it to Herman. Herman wrote down the phone number on a piece of paper and then dialed the number. Dear old Dean. This time, Herman believed Harrison's words. If what the Harrison family said was true, then it was likely Hubert's family had already informed the hospital. He would not be able to obtain any information by contacting Mr. Dean himself. Thus, he had to pretend to have regained his memory first. Mr. Dean hesitated for a few seconds before asking, "Who is this? Tell me, old Dean, did Nash cure my illness? Who are you? And who's Nash?" Mr. Dean's voice sounded somewhat angry. "Did you dial the wrong number?" With that, he hung up the phone. Herman listened to the busy tone on the phone, his expression extremely complex. It seemed that Mr. Dean really did not recognize him. In other words, the Harrison family had truly fabricated some lies in order to compete for the family's assets. These lies were full of loopholes. While Harrison was a bit foolish, Lauren, coming from a prestigious family, should not be that stupid, right? After pondering for a moment, Herman let out a long sigh and then slowly lay down to rest. In Mr. Dean's home, his wife asked drowsily, "Who was it? Who called you so late?" Mr. Dean leaned against the head of the bed, lit a cigarette, and took a deep drag. It was old Louis. He already knew about Herman's situation. However, he had received a warning yesterday that he must pretend not to recognize Herman, or else his family would be met with accidents. Initially, Mr. Dean did not take it seriously, but yesterday afternoon, a stranger happened to pick up his granddaughter from school. The next day at noon, the security system at the Lewis family's estate was strengthened. Herman hired nearly 30 more people from a security company. The entire mansion was heavily guarded. Meanwhile, Kai came to visit. Hubert's family had smiles on their faces. Herman was also radiant and could not stop smiling. After all, Helena marrying into a prestigious family was a source of pride for the Lewises. Just as everyone was happily eating, Hira rushed in excitedly. "Grandpa, the CEO of Drake Group is here." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone trembled. Drake Group, one of the top 10 companies in Johnford, had 16 branch offices across the country, with nearly 30,000 employees in each company. Even on a national scale, they could be ranked among the top 50. This super conglomerate was involved in various business sectors, including automobiles, mobile phones, computers, tablets, gaming consoles, and all other electronic products. Countless chip companies wanted to collaborate with them. Rococo mainly produced organic chips, and most of its revenue came from contract manufacturing due to its own brand's major flaws. Drake Group had a large demand for contract manufacturing. Hira's chip company was not the only one that wanted to collaborate with Drake Group, but Helena's family company as well. However, what puzzled everyone was why the CEO of Drake Group personally came to the Lewis family's estate. "Come with me to greet Miss Olivia." Herman led everyone outside to greet the guest, and even Kai followed. Outside the estate, a seductive beauty was leaning against a Ferrari. Behind this Ferrari were numerous supercars, even more than what Kai had in his garage. "Oli, it's just a small family. Is it necessary for us to make such a big show?" A short-haired beauty asked with a puzzled expression. "I'm also curious. Why would that despicable man attach so much importance to the Lewises, who can't even be considered a third-rate family?" Chapter 42. Just as Olivia was done speaking, the short-haired beauty's phone started ringing in her bag. The short-haired beauty took out her phone and glanced at it. Upon seeing the caller ID, her spirits lifted instantly. "Oli, it's Mr. Sky's phone call." Olivia took the phone and wiped to answer it. Spit it out. The short-haired beauty could not help but chuckle. On the other end of the line was Theo, the son of the prestigious Sky family in Capitan. He had a strange temperament and had unpredictable moods. Nonetheless, he always treated Oli with great respect. "You didn't go to the Lewis household yesterday?" Theo's cold voice came through the phone. Hearing Theo's unfriendly tone, Olivia's arrogance immediately subsided, and she explained, Yesterday, there was a major client from abroad, so I got delayed. I'm already at the entrance of the Lewis family's estate now." "What nonsense! If you dare to disrespect my Nashi, I'll make sure Drake Group goes bankrupt in minutes, Theo yelled at Olivia without giving her any face. Before Olivia could finish her sentence, Theo hung up the phone. The short-haired beauty had never seen Mr. Sky lose his temper before and secretly broke into a cold sweat for Olivia. Olivia handed the phone to the short-haired beauty and said absent-mindedly, "Let's go. We'll have to meet the Lewises and this Nash guy." The Skys were a 300-year-old business dynasty with investments spanning the globe. Their commercial empire was immense. Hence, Theo was an extremely arrogant person. Even the scions of other prestigious families had to greet him politely. She had never heard of anyone being able to make Theo call them by a cute nickname. Just then, Herman led the Lewis family members over hurriedly. "Miss Olivia, welcome. Please forgive my neglectful welcome," Herman greeted with a smile, bowing politely. At the same time, the corner of his eye caught sight of the supercars parked on both sides of the road. The lowest starting price for these supercars was at least 700 grand. And there were even several custom-made Koenigsegg's which were top-of-the-line luxury cars worth nearly 15 million. The Lewises could not help but gasp in awe. As expected of the female CEO of one of John Ford's top 10 companies, this display could only be described as terrifying. "Mr. Lewis, you're too polite. We're impolite to have come uninvited. Please don't take offense, Mr. Lewis," Olivia said with a gentle smile, extending her hand to shake hands with Herman. Herman's heart was filled with excitement and surging emotions. Normally, he would not even have the qualification to meet Olivia. Yet today, he had the honor of shaking hands with her. Herman turned to Harrison and said, "Hurry, go have Maria bring a few more sets of tableware." Harrison did not dare to delay and quickly turned around to run back to the villa. Herman made a gesture of invitation. "Miss Olivia, please. Please go ahead of me, Mr. Lewis." Olivia would rarely lower her posture. This scene left the Lewises stunned. Hera cautiously asked Lauren, "Mom, could it be that Miss Olivia came here to cooperate with us?" Lauren looked thoughtful, and upon hearing her daughter's words, she sighed bitterly. "I'm afraid it's at the invitation of the Watsons instead." She was well aware of her own capabilities. Even with the Lewises' connections, they had only received an order worth $4 million before. Chapter 43. Later, the Watsons intervened, and that order was cancelled. Today, when the Watsons' eldest son arrived at the Lewis family's estate, the CEO of Drake Group followed closely behind. Hera could only connect Miss Olivia's arrival with Kai. Hera lowered her head, feeling gloomy. With the Watsons involved, Helena's family would rise to the top. "Darling, you're amazing. You even managed to invite Miss Olivia," Helena exclaimed as she excitedly grabbed Kai's arm and disregarded the crowd. She went on her tiptoes and left a lipstick mark on his face. Kai stood with his hands in his pockets and smiled faintly. "I just asked a classmate of mine to reach out to Drake Group. I didn't expect him to call Olivia over." "Prepare yourself. Drake Group will sign a cooperation agreement with Rococo soon." He did contact people from Drake Group, but it was to help Helena sever the cooperation between Drake Group and Baroque. Upon hearing Kai's words, Hubert and his wife became so excited that tears filled their eyes. Being able to collaborate with Drake Group meant that Rococo's future would be infinitely bright. Rooney's chubby face was filled with a smile. She glanced at Lauren, whose temperament surpassed hers by countless levels, and walked up to her, feigning surprise. "Lauren, I heard that you shamelessly used the mayor's connections to obtain cooperation rights with Drake Group. Miss Olivia must be here to sign a contract and collaborate with you, right?" Hubert heard his wife mocking Lauren, and he could not help but secretly laugh. This strategy of killing with words was indeed effective. Lauren was well-read and knowledgeable. Even if her family suppressed her, she could handle it with ease. He also wanted to see the expression on Lauren's face when she saw Drake Group, which she had been longing to collaborate with, sign a contract with Rococo. Hera stared at Rooney with disgust but dared not speak out. Lauren raised her gaze slightly and said, "You must be joking, dear Rooney. I don't have the ability to invite Miss Olivia over. You have so much knowledge in your mind. I thought maybe it was you who invited her." Her meaning was clear. Miss Olivia was not invited by her, and she had nothing to do with their family. As for the claim that Rooney had a lot of knowledge in her mind, It was actually a sarcastic remark about her being dense. Hera could detect the meaning behind her mother's words and had a faint smile on her face. It was the first time Rooney heard Lauren complimenting her. She thought that she had the upper hand. She smiled, causing the fat on her face to jiggle uncontrollably. Good to know that you're self-aware. Don't worry, Lauren. If your company goes bankrupt, I'll definitely leave you a position as a toilet cleaner. Soon, everyone returned to their seats in the living room. After Olivia's clear gaze swept around, she looked at Kai and Helena sitting together. Just as glance made Helena's family feel excited, they became even more certain that Miss Olivia had come for their sake. Kai raised his glass and smiled. Miss Olivia, it's a pleasure to meet you. Allow me to give you a toast. Olivia quickly picked up her glass and smiled modestly. I should be giving you a toast instead. The fact that only this young man was seated at the Lewis household indicated that his status and position were extremely extraordinary. He should be Nash, who was mentioned by her husband. Seeing how polite Olivia was toward him, Kai's confidence grew. He even suspected that his old classmate might have some sort of relationship with Olivia. After finishing a glass of wine, Kai asked politely, Miss Olivia, did you come to the Lewis household today to collaborate with the Lewises? Olivia thought that Theo just wanted to secretly support Nash, so Nash was unaware of her true intentions here. She chuckled. Yes. Our marketing department recently decided to export a batch of mobile phones to Stygian nation, so Miss Olivia, Stygian is poor and underdeveloped. It'll be difficult to capture the high-end digital product market in Stygian. Helena mustered up the courage to interrupt Olivia. The labor and resources in Stygian were relatively inexpensive. It would be feasible to establish a production line there. However, selling phones there might not even recover the cost. Olivia was a bit curious in her heart. She only wanted Baroque's chips, so why was this young lady concerned about phones? Nonetheless, she did not dwell on it too much. Perhaps she was just worried about potential losses. She explained with a smile, we can sell at a small profit but in large quantities. Stygian has a population no less than our country, and we already have multiple distribution channels. We can ensure sales of over 200,000 units per day. Chapter 44. This statement directly shocked Helena, leaving her mouth gaping. The highest sales record for Rococo phones in the domestic market was only around 20,000 units. Indeed, it would take a super enterprise like Drake Group to have distribution channels. Olivia turned her head to the short-haired woman and said, Alice, bring the contract over. Immediately, a bodyguard beside Alice took out a contract from her handbag. The people of the Lewis household were filled with excitement, their hearts overflowing with joy. Almost everyone's gaze was fixed on that contract. Olivia handed the contract to Helena and said, This is the cooperation agreement between us and your company. The initial order is 300 million, and after signing the contract, we'll prepay 50% within 3 working days. 300 million! Moreover, it was only the initial order. Even Herman could not help but take a deep breath. Hubert kept swallowing his saliva, his heart surging like a stormy sea. Rooney was so happy that she danced around. Kai had given a dowry of 30 million and promised to invest 1.5 billion in the Lewises after the wedding. Nonetheless, those were investment amounts. The Watsons would also take a share of the regular profits, and the principal was not theirs. The contract offered by Olivia was real money. A 300 million order meant that Drake Group would purchase smartphones worth 300 million from Rococo. Based on the wholesale price of Rococo phones, which was around $150 per unit, 350 million could buy approximately 2 million phones. Then, there was the cost price of Rococo's low-end phones, which was around $100. They would earn a profit of $50 per unit, which would amount to around 100 million from 2 million phones. This was money they could not earn in 10 years. Plus, it was only the first order. According to Drake Group's distribution channels, they guaranteed sales of 200,000 phones per day. With 2 million phones, they could be sold out in just 10 days. In other words, Rococo would have a continuous stream of orders in the future. After the first 100 million net profit, there would be many more 100 million profits. With such support from Drake Group, it would be difficult for the Lewises not to rise. Seeing Helena in a daze, Herman quickly reminded her, Silly child, Hurry up and take the contract. Helena snapped out of it and tremblingly took the contract. Kira's face turned pale, and she said faintly, "Dad, Mom, Grandpa, Miss Olivia, I'm feeling unwell. Please excuse me." After speaking, she went upstairs to her room. Originally, Drake Group was supposed to cooperate with Baroque. This glory should have belonged to her family. In the end, it was taken by Helena. She knew that she no longer had a chance to turn things around. Meanwhile, Helena opened the contract, and Hubert handed her a pen with a smile on his face. However, when Helena saw the contents of the contract, the smile on her face instantly froze. She thought she had read it wrong and rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Looking at it again, the words were written clearly on the white paper. Suddenly, Helena felt like she was struck by lightning. At this moment, Herman was happily toasting Olivia. Olivia also chuckled softly and said, "Mr. Lewis, your granddaughter has found herself a good husband." Herman was slightly stunned. Then he laughed and said, "It's my granddaughter's blessing." After all, Kai was the eldest son of the first prestigious family in Johnford. Probably no one would say he was not good enough. Chapter 45. Being praised by Miss Olivia herself indicated that Kai's identity was more than just that. Herman raised his teacup and glanced at Kai from the corner of his eye. When he noticed that Helena was still in a daze, he could not help but smile and say, "Helena, hurry up and sign your name." The $300 million contract would only be officially confirmed once both parties signed the papers. Therefore, it was common for the parties involved to be eager. Helena was still too young, and she seemed terrified by this huge contract. "What are you waiting for, Helena?" Hubert also reminded her in a low voice. Seeing this, Kai picked up the contract to review. When he saw the contents of the contract, his face changed slightly. "Miss Olivia, did you mistakenly give us the wrong contract?" Kai, who was usually ruthless, carried a look of anger that made people shudder when his expression changed. Olivia was also startled by Kai's reaction and immediately turned to Alice angrily. "Did you give them the wrong contract?" Alice trembled in fear, nervously saying, "No, it can't be. I checked the contract 12 times to make sure there was no problem." Miss Olivia had just returned from overseas and was about to cooperate with the Lewises, and it was a contract worth $300 million. How dare she mess this up? Olivia also trusted Alice's competence, otherwise, she would not have kept her as her secretary. Kai handed the contract back to Olivia. "My girlfriend's company is called Rococo. The company you want to cooperate with is Rococo, not Baroque." Upon hearing this, Alice immediately explained, "We indeed wish to cooperate with Baroque. Rococo produces phones, while Baroque produces chips. We're interested in Baroque's phone chips." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire villa fell silent. Everyone remained frozen in their postures, as if time had stopped at that moment. Kai had seen the world and had dealt with orders worth billions of dollars. He furrowed his brows and asked, "Miss Olivia, are you sure you want to cooperate with Baroque and not Rococo? It shouldn't be wrong, right?" Olivia took a deep breath, her mind in a state of turmoil. Due to time constraints, she did not have the opportunity to thoroughly understand the Lewises. She only knew that the Lewises had two companies. One produced chips and was called Baroque. The other produced phones and was called Rococo. Theo assured her that purchasing chips from Baroque would definitely not be a problem. Now the biggest question was if this man was Nash. As Olivia's secretary, Alice naturally guessed what was on Olivia's mind and cautiously asked, "Mr. Kai, do you perhaps have a middle name that starts with the letter N?" Kai shook his head and said, "No." Upon hearing this, Alice looked at Olivia awkwardly and said, "Oli, I forgot that you don't know Mr. Watson here. He's the grandson of Walter Watson, the richest person in Johnford." Kai had a high profile in Johnford, but he did not have the qualifications to attract the attention of the CEOs of the top 10 enterprises, especially since Miss Olivia often traveled abroad or was in other branch offices. Olivia was embarrassed and wished she could find a hole to hide in. She mistook Kai for Nash and thought Helena was the CEO of Baroque. Alice said solemnly, "Well, I can make it clear to everyone here that Drake Group wishes to cooperate with Baroque." Hubert fell to the ground. His face was pale, and his eyes were lifeless. It was as if he had lost his soul. Rooney sat dumbfounded in her chair, her mind going blank. Drake Group wanted to collaborate with Baroque? How could Drake Group possibly want to collaborate with Baroque? She had just mocked Lauren in every possible way. In the end, the clown turned out to be herself. No, that can't be. With a pale face, Helena shook her head and desperately grabbed Kai's arm, asking, Kai, this isn't true, right? Miss Olivia must have gotten the contract wrong, right?